And I think I'm going to start the live transcript so that it will then be on the video. I have turned on live transcription. So if you don't like seeing this, you can hide it on your own. And so you won't have to see it. But I think for accessibility purposes, when we can have these word scrolling, especially for things that we're taping that people might watch later, I think it's good to have. So it does also make me try to speak in complete sentences. So I can be sure to, anyway, sorry, I can't help myself. So what we're going to be talking about today is membership and welcoming people into the congregation. I've been here with you for 4 years, and we've been growing in both membership and in, what's the word, Carla? Units, pledge units, consistently in a city that is actually declining in population. I've promised every single year this will not continue, but it keeps continuing because I keep trying to, promise low, deliver high. But it strikes me also that it's really, it's the only church I've ever been to that's growing that does not have a membership committee, does not have a membership team. It has a stewardship team, which is phenomenal. It has welcomers and who are phenomenal. It has a hospitality team that just won't quit, that even wants to do hospitality in the COVID era, has all of these other aspects. And so part of this discussion is to say, should we write a paper on how to do welcoming, how to rethink it, or should we talk about whether this is how we want to keep doing welcoming and new membership? I'm really glad to see we have kind of a variety here of folks who've joined recently and live elsewhere, who've joined recently and only been in the building once, who joined a long time ago, who are thinking of joining and haven't, who knew about the congregation for decades and then joined. So I'm really excited about the group that is gathered, because I'd like to just have a frank listening discussion about what people think about the membership process or becoming a member here. So let me say a few things about that. There might not be an area where more people write more than on church membership. I'm gonna put myself here on spotlight just for a little while, friends, just for the video purposes. So you'll just have to contend with looking at my face for a bit. Actually, you can get off this view and just go into gallery view again if you want. But for now, I'm just going to talk a little. So like I was saying, there isn't an area that's written more on. Every minister's got their own opinions. Every congregation has their own opinions. And there are a few different ways to think about growing, a church growing and welcoming people. Numbers is one. We can look at attendance. We can look at members, and we can look at pledge units. Just to give you an idea of what that all is. Before COVID, numbers were literally just the number of souls through the door, number of bodies through the door. Pledge units are the number of families or groups that pledge either individually or together. So we can count that. And we can also count, other attendance, like who are the actual people there. And then members is actual people who have signed the book and are voting members of the congregation. And then we have the community who come, many who give, who pledge and are not members, and just feel it's important that the UU church is there, likes what they're doing, likes what is offered, wants to support it, but isn't quite like going to be a member. So we welcome all of these kinds of people at our congregation. I do think we have a unique position as really the only UU church in the state with a regular minister. Well, I'm pretty weird, but I'm regularly there. I'm a regular minister. But and so I think that is part of why part of our growth is just kind of built in. It's just going to kind of come because we're sort of the only act in town for Unitarian Universalism. We're not the only act in town for open-hearted, open-thinking, service, or maybe service-oriented, and those things. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure where our brand identity lies in all of Oahu, but so there are some other reasons why we do this. And the other reason why membership probably has been growing is that I've been doing it for us. That's, I mean, some aspects of it. I teach the Path to Engagement class virtually every month. I'd say 9 times a year, maybe 10. And then I meet with people during that time. I follow up with them by email and sometimes by telephone call. I explain some of the way the church works. Oftentimes, folks are very kind to step in, and other folks at the church who know about pledging and who know about social justice, and I can get folks in touch with them. And the other thing, the secret weapon that, or the secret salve, maybe the opposite of a weapon, that this church has is chalice circles. Many people join chalice circles before they even join the church. That's really what they're looking for, is a small community of trusted individuals who listen and who they can share with. So that, to give an idea about chalice circles, many of the books written about how to grow a church that say has 100 to 120 members that wants to grow to say 300 or 400, they start talking about having small group ministries when it gets to 300 or 400. So we are doing small group ministries with a group that's between 100 or 120. But when you start adding the folks who are our friends, who come, that's the place where we see a lot of chalice circles with 2 or 3 folks in some of the circles who don't come to church, maybe aren't even members, but they support the church and they like the chalice circle. So that's a bit of how, and I think the chalice circles help people come into membership. So we have a lot of these pieces. And one of the things I want to start thinking about myself and maybe talking with other people about before we open up, I have this idea that if our church starts letting people in, that it's just we're not going to be able to keep them out. It's just going to be the flood of people who've been waiting to come together. And I just want us to be ready for, frankly, even just one person who decides that they want to check us out. That's kind of enough for me to talk about this and to get it right. But I do think it will be more people. And I think there are a lot of people who I know personally who've just been waiting for us to be open, because we're going to be welcoming people who we've been talking to on Zoom for a year and a half, who we've never met personally either. So we have all of this welcoming stuff coming up. And we're a group of people that's gotten really used to not having to welcome anyone to anything anymore. We've been home just kind of doing our thing. And so that is why I wanted to have, and that's really the end of my short little introduction and talk. But what I really want to get at is, what do we think we need to be doing for this welcome that will be coming? That's one thing that you might want to talk about. You could also tell us what it was like or what it's been like to try to become a member here and things you face, challenges you faced. If you're someone who hasn't become a member yet and are kind of curious, we'd be curious to hear what's going on there. I just want to hear a little more about what welcoming new members would really look like for folks, or questions they have. So that's really what I wanted to hear. I guess first I could see if there are any questions, if people want to follow up on anything that I said, or if there's anything that I said that brought things up for folks that they want to say something about. So that's the discussion today. And I'd love to hear more from people about what they're feeling. So.
I can start from a couple different perspectives. I've been a member, well, I joined right before Jennifer was voted in because I wanted to vote. And quickly became part of the church just by Molly saying, do you want to be a greeter? And I said, but I don't know anybody. She said, this is the best way. You stand there, people have name tags on and you greet them, you get to know faces and whatever. And then I believe Catherine, this is my focus is my part in the membership teams since I have joined. Catherine was chair of the membership team at that point. And there was a lot of activities going along. We did a lot of different kinds of things that got kind of everybody involved. Martina took over. I believe that was the next person, and we continued to do membership soirees, we call it, for new members getting, parties and whatever. But what brought me into the church fold of the community was being part of activities in the church. David and Joan came up and say, hey, would you like, I think you'd be a good fit for the gallery. And I said, I'm not an artist. They said, no. So that was part of our membership strategy, if you wanted to call it that, is finding a place for people to make connections in small groups because we didn't have the chalice groups. So it might be interesting for people who maybe are newer to the church, maybe to hear some of Catherine's ideas that we're doing and Martina, and then bring it up to the date. I was writing thank you notes with stamps and mails for visitors that came and did the sign up sheet, but nobody does that anymore because we've got emails. So there was a big jump when about the time Martina was taking over. It was a whole different ball game for membership, and maybe she can kind of speak to that when the computers came in. So that's just kind of my input.
Thanks, Janice. And I know you gave a time based on when Jennifer was here. Can you just, for everyone who's here, give us roughly a year, just so that we can kind of track what we're talking about? So would that have been in like 2004, 2005?
Could be. I honestly,
No.
I would have to look that up. I think it's what 9 years ago?
Oh, okay. So a lot more.
2011.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nan. So thank you. That's something from Janice. Thanks for sharing that experience. I'm wondering if anyone who's joined more recently could say anything about their experience coming to the church.
Well, I'll talk.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi. So my introduction to the church came at a really difficult time in my life when I found myself in Honolulu, sort of at loose ends. Because I had a family member who had had a massive stroke, and Sunday came around and I just needed to be with somebody. And at that particular time, UUWH did have a part-time minister. And I think she called you, TJ. Is that anyway? Somehow there was a connection made, and so Lucy and I came to church, and it was just such a lovely experience that I've always, ever since then, I've always thought, wow, that's where I want to go to church. However, it's a long swim, and so. Yeah, so anyway, then, so I've remembered that, and I've talked about it to friends here, like, wow, you guys, there's something cool going on way over there. And so that was kind of the beginning, was I just walked in the door, and it was just great. And so then when, you know, Karen and I were kind of wishing that we had someplace else to be, I said, you know what? Let's see what's going on over there. And you guys were, I think we got the Zoom link, and we just started attending. And so it's because you guys were online that it really has worked for us. And now I have a coffee farmer friend who delivers produce once a week. And I've managed to kind of, you know, pique her interest. And so we are having a little conversation just a few days ago. And she said, Jewish people can go to your church?
And
I
how?
said, oh yeah. And pagan and Wiccan and Catholic and Buddhist. And so anyway, yeah, so we got a little thing going over here. So, but being online has just been an incredible gift.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yeah.
And you and Janice are both incredible gifts too. So we are hearing about connection and invitation, and we're hearing about multi-platform connection, technology, things like that. So that's good. And if someone has got, if everyone's hearing these nice stories and it's like, but what we really need is this, that's also on the table. I'm curious if people have been around and have been sitting on something and thinking, you know, whether it's the section on widening the circle, whether it's accessibility, whether it's young families, whatever needs to, you know, be discussed also is on the table. But I am enjoying hearing the stories of people as well coming to the church and maybe how that ended up happening for them. Anyone else who's got a story to tell about those or questions or what we really need? I see Junko's hand. Hi, Junko.
So I won't talk about my personal experience and all that, because, you know, it gets old. I mean, we all have our stories. But the one thing that I noticed for our church is that, you know, we are all friends. So when we see on Sunday, we tend to want to talk to our friends, because we have Carol. Oh,
She's got it.
you.
Yep.
So we tend to want to talk to each other. And I know, furthermore, we also are in various committees. So we want to make sure that certain committee things are done. So we get kind of taken away in paying attention to those needs. My personal needs to connect with my friends whom I haven't seen for a whole week and I really love them. And the other is a few little committee stuff. And so what happens, the result of that is that when newcomers come, we don't pay enough attention. And it's the UUA. It happened in our previous church. We had all kinds of gimmicks where we would give yellow cups to newcomers. And eventually we realized that, well, we actually avoid people with yellow cups. So we did away with that. So the point is that we have all kinds of gimmicks, but we just have to kind of make a point that, yeah, I'm so glad I got to see Eleanor or, you know, somebody, and I haven't seen her for so long. Nevertheless, hello, Eleanor, but I need to pay attention to the newcomers.
Just one person.
All you need is even just one person. You don't have to talk to all 5 newcomers. And it's hard. And we made it a conscious effort to do that. And we just go up to one person, and I noticed that, you know, you stood up for the newcomers, and we go up and talk to them. And then if we happen to be talking to David Friedman, which we often do, you know, and when we see the newcomer walk by, we invite them to join us. And it takes a certain kind of commitment to do that. And I think that's the best way to be welcoming. And we can have all kinds of gimmicks, we can have all kinds of committees, but ultimately that's what really
And then
counts.
remember their name.
And remember their names. That's what Dave is always saying. Remember their names. So that's my input.
Thank you, Junko. I see you'll be next, Kathy. I see your hand. I just wanted to affirm the there's pretty good data that if someone comes to a service and in a small setting, small church, and no one talks to them, that there's a pretty good chance they won't come back. It's like something like more than 40% chance. 46% is in what I read. And bigger churches, they get a little more leeway, actually, weirdly. I don't know why. I think you can imagine, it's like, if it's so small, you should all know that I'm new kind of idea. Whereas in an enormous church, you could spend years and still not meet people. So there is data on exactly what Junko is saying. So thank you, Junko and David. Kathy, did you have a further comment on your?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I just recalled that one of the things that made my experience that very first time so good was that I was flying under the Vlasic's wing. And yeah, it was like I had a mentor and or a guide or something, and that was very welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, that was part of our membership team for whatever period of time it was, and we did a congregational in-service, and I forget what the guide was called. We had a Hawaiian name that would kind of be a guide to, okay, so they would sign in, there would be a person standing there to kind of take them under your wing and introduce them, make sure they get into hospitality, and then you can introduce them around, and then kind of let them know about what's going on in the church.
Mhm.
Invite them to different kinds of things as a guide. What was the name of, what did we call them? Marie and
They were called Alakai.
yes.
But I
yes.
will say, initially, when Jim and I first joined the church, I jumped right into membership. It was one of the things that I did at our previous church. And what I found was that the task of membership had fallen on the shoulders eventually of just three women. And under Jennifer's guidance, we worked up another plan, another pathway for membership that passed through, went to the board and was approved by the board. But there was kind of a double whammy against it. Number one, the congregation wasn't ready for it. They had been so used to not having to deal with the membership aspect of welcoming and including our visitors, and they weren't ready to do it. Whenever Jennifer, and then Jennifer quit, and he quit rather suddenly, and so minister support fell away, and the church became more concerned with keeping Sunday going, keeping worship going, than with the membership aspect of it. And there were a few of us that tried. Nan Kleiber helped with her input. Heather Lemke tried. Marisol tried, but we couldn't keep it going. And so just out of exhaustion, we gave up. And I have to say, it is the source of the greatest failure of my life. And it taught me so many lessons in that, even with that supreme failure, I was still embraced by this group of people. And so I feel like it is worthwhile. So the important thing is to get congregational buy-in and to have minister presence. I think those are two really important aspects of beginning the membership road.
Thanks so much, Martina, for your insight. And I know that's holding a lot of pain for you. So I want to thank you for sharing it so publicly and so honestly. Thank you for that. David and Joan.
There we go. Hello, everybody. Greetings.
Hi.
Aloha. Yeah, a couple of thoughts come to mind. Not generally being one who takes the initiative to go up and talk to strangers. I do on occasion. I don't have a hard and fast rule against it, but it's not part of my chemistry generally. But I do find that there's a couple of things that come to mind that I have found, I think, to lubricate the situation and to allow for a kind of a connection. One is something that we used to do a while back, which is have a brochure, some kind of a pamphlet, a threefold or a little booklet, whatever, that listed the various teams within the church and named the names of the leaders, the team leaders, the chairs, and so forth, and a sentence or two that characterized what the group did, and the name of the one person, the go-to person, perhaps with a phone number. And it really, I think, facilitated. It was just available on the table to take, or you could offer it to somebody that might be an icebreaker. And I think that it then gave the strangers information with which to navigate, and for them to take a little bit of initiative, because it's all it really takes is seeing somebody. Well, the other side of this is more visual, which we've done to some degree, which is the bulletin boards and having pictures of members of the different groups. And I think that was a very, very productive technique, because it empowers individuals who just need to know a little bit about where they're heading, to be able to go up to see somebody they see. They could say, I saw your picture on the bulletin board, and I see that you're a member of the Social Justice Council, and I just really wanted to talk to you about that. Or I see that you are on the Art Gallery Committee or hospitality or whatever. And I think that identifying faces up front is very helpful as a way of opening up a channel to make it easy for somebody to just initiate meeting somebody and starting a conversation. I think that's all.
Thanks, David.
I
Yeah,
like
we do have that that pamphlet still. We just haven't really been distributing it in the pandemic, but I actually have by email when people have asked for it. But one of the things, and I know there's plenty of other people who could share, but I read an interesting article from a book called Outgrowing the Ingrown Church. And it's a discussion about doing kind of work, and it's something that really works. So it's written for all churches, but one of the things it talks about is being out in the community, doing things, being seen, meeting people that way, and the church getting known for things it does out in the community is a way of bringing people in, where they then already identify your church with something that's being done out in the community. Many UU churches find success with OWL with this. Many churches find success in social justice initiatives or racial justice initiatives or environmental justice initiatives. And of course, environmental justice is racial justice, just to always remind us that. But the way of doing that is also something. I'm just wondering if there's anyone who's sort of come to the church that way, or sort of like met someone out in the world or doing something, or kind of knew of the church as something first and then came, and what that experience might have been like for them. And there may not be on this this call, but okay. So that's I mean, I know that we do have folks that have come that way, but just maybe not on this call. So yeah, any other thoughts on ways of welcome or experiences folks have had coming? I see we're going to go to Bill first, if that's okay, because Junko, and then we'll go to Junko and Kathy, who've both spoken already. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay. For several years, I was a member of the Spirits and on the worship team. And of course, that meant that I arrive early for rehearsals and all of that. And when done with that, I would look out into the congregation space, and almost invariably there would be somebody sitting by themselves out there and whose face I didn't recognize. So I just made a point of going over and greeting them and just, you know, encouraging them to come to coffee hour afterwards and so on. And another thing about being in those roles is that I usually am a little bit slower than everybody else getting out of their chairs and going into the coffee hour. But when I would do that, after putting away my instruments or whatever, all I would see was backs of people. It was like I didn't see the faces of people looking toward the door and seeing people come through, because everybody seemed to be in little tightly knit groups. So I felt reluctant to kind of break into a group and just say, "Oh, hi guys, you know, what are we talking about?" That's just not in my nature. And I can imagine that somebody who is new to the congregation, who walks into a room where they only see backs, they will turn around and go away. So yeah, so that's enough for me.
Thanks, Bill. Kathy, then Junko, and yeah, we'll go.
Thank you. I didn't actually want to speak for me. I wanted to speak for Karen Gold, who couldn't be here this evening because she had an AAUW Zoom that she had to attend. But one of the things that has made her experience with First UU Honolulu is her interest in PFLAG and the involvement there. And she is really heavily invested in the community. And I know that if she were here, she would have had her hand up there. So anyway.
So for those of you who don't know, PFLAG is making a comeback in Oahu after 5 years of having some issues with another group who call themselves PFLAG. And I'm actually part of the organizing committee trying to reestablish PFLAG. So PFLAG works by county though. And so Karen was at all of our initial organizational meetings, but now Big Island is sort of doing their own PFLAG, which is really exciting.
Right.
And I am still working on the organizing committee with Cameron and with a few other people. It will be very confusing because there's a woman named Tanya Fitzgerald who we just voted as president, and her email is tfitzgerald@something. So I get so confused when I send myself emails about things to do, and then I realize it's Tanya Fitzgerald, not my alter ego waking up and doing things, telling me to do things. But it wouldn't be the first time that happened. So just to give everyone a little background on what's going on there. Junko, I saw your hand again. Junko or David? Yeah.
Well, you kind of touched upon racial justice and you know, the diversity. You didn't use that word, but I must say, you know, so when we moved to Hawaii, I mean, to live, we've been coming to Hawaii for many years, but to live only 7 years ago or 8 years ago. And so, you know, I would get on the bus and see all these Asian faces. I could tell that they were not exactly my kind of Asian, but never mind. I saw Asian faces. And, I've been to many, we've been UU for 54, 5 years. So we've been to several Unitarian Universalist churches. So in almost every one of them, very white. And so I kind of got used to that. And so after my bus rides and all that, in fact, we used to take the bus up to the Poly church. And I would get off and enter our UU. And there were not a single Asian face. Occasionally an Asian face would show up. And I was kind of shocked. I was really shocked. How is that? And initially the usual UU mind is like, what's wrong with this church, blah, blah, blah. But I came to realize that many Hawaiians, I mean, both ethnic as well as people who've lived here for many years, are very, very Christian. And they're wonderful Christian. I mean, Christian in the most beautiful ways, and caring, and does as much service as we think we do. And so I think it's something for us to pay attention to. I don't know what it means, and I don't know how to fix it, but I think it doesn't hurt us to think about all this. Not to mention people of other color, Black Americans. And it's something to think about. I don't think there's anything bad about us. It's just that's the way it is. It's something for us to think about. And I don't know. I have no solution.
Well, I will say that I was, and Eleanor, I see your hand, you're next. I will say that on Sunday afternoon, I got a message from the Asian and Pacific Islander working group that's part of DRUM, which is the diverse UU ministries, racially diverse group in the UU ministries, asking if we would essentially sign on to, that if I'd look over and agree to a grant proposal that the API group, the Asian Pacific Islander group, is sending to the UUA to increase Asian and Pacific Islander visibility in the denomination. It's really a study about exactly what you're talking about, Junko, about really trying to understand what the lack of visibility is and things like that. And my only comment was they should be asking for more than $20,000. But and that if they needed any help with figuring that out. But I will say this, they did also cite Honolulu as, and the word they used was severe underrepresentation. And I did say, I'm not sure that my congregation would agree with the word severe for Asian Pacific Islander representation by power. Just, and in general, I felt like that might not be something that the congregation would agree with, but I didn't have time to vet the whole thing, and it's due tomorrow. So I just left comments saying, I think my congregation would 100% agree that we need this study and that you should probably get more than $20,000, but consider that the leadership and visibility of some of our Asian Pacific Island leaders are loved, cherished, and absolutely important to us. So maybe a nod in the comments of the proposal would be appropriate. So we'll see what they do. But since I have you here and you mentioned it, there could be a study coming very soon about this very topic that we can learn more about. So, so thanks. Eleanor.
I'm going to start with a tangent, which is I totally hate API lumpage. It makes my job so much harder. I resent it, but that is life. Sorry, did you want to respond to that, TJ?
I had a conversation. I literally had an hour-long conversation with Nicole Wu at Appleseed about that very thing, and she also included, Black and African American suffers very similar problems in statistics, but where we are and lumping API together is problematic. I hear you, and if you'd like to send an addendum that I can send to Reverend Joseph Santos Lyons and Leslie Takahashi. I bet they'd love to read it. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My main thought was, I think it's when it comes to welcoming people, I think there are many lanes, and I'm glad that there are many lanes, because I absolutely suck at coffee hour because of my voice, because of my children. There's just I'm never ever good at coffee hour, and I never will be. So I've got other strengths that I can work on, but just focusing on a wide range of ways in which we can welcome, which I think we already do. But also, this is me forgiving myself for sucking at coffee hour, because I always wish I could do better, but no, it's not going to happen. Nobody can hear me over the din. So yeah, that's all.
Well, I think even when we gather, and I see Richard's hand, I don't know if it's Richard or Karen up there, but consider this from your safety first minister. Even when we gather, it may be a little while before there's coffee urns or anything that anyone's picking off a plate that's sitting out in front of people.
No.
I certainly will not be picking up anything off an open air plate for quite some time. So I thank you for saying that. We might have to just say the idea of coffee hour for a little while is going to be drastically altered, and to just prepare all our little caffeine beating hearts for that with that issue. I see lots of hands flying up now. I've caused a problem. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to cause problems. But we're gonna go Richard.
I figured it out.
Yeah. So Richard, go ahead, and then Nan and Pierre, and then Nancy.
One thing I think the church needs to invest in, I have a small model of it right here.
Oh.
I don't know if you can see that. Do you see what that is?
Looks like a ball of some kind.
It's a crystal ball.
Oh, okay.
In terms of what even the near future is going to be like for us, why might we be welcoming hordes of people? So some projection of into at least a near future might be useful. But I was involved when I was dragged along to St. Andrews for many years. I got myself involved in their committee that looked on this. So I studied this a lot. We implemented a lot of things. I have no idea how effective it was, but my main point is that it seems to me that when a congregation is, and I'm using welcome in the uncode way, broadly, wanting people to come and wanting to diversify whatever their goals. They say, look how wonderful we are. Come be one, and we like being wonderful in this way. How would you like to come be part of our wonderfulness? And we'll teach you how to be wonderful like we like to be wonderful. It's very difficult to think in terms of a two-way street here, of us wanting to be changed by these things. And really listening to somebody means being changed by them. And if our congregation listens to visitors, we have to be at risk for being changed by them. And that may be the stumbling block here. I don't know if I want to be changed. We changed some little thing in the service to make it more have a different flavor to it, let's say, without identifying that flavor. And you're the one who gets the complaints, right?
I don't know what you're talking about. No one ever complains about my worship services.
Of course not. I'm making all of this up. This is my story. So I don't have answers here.
It's interesting those stories you have about St. Andrews, but I've never heard of those things here. No, I'm kidding. But yeah. No, I mean oh, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Yeah, one of the interesting things you bring up is when people think about congregational growth, they think in terms of numbers. And what I didn't get into and what our educators in the room might think of is that one of the most important ways a congregation grows is individual spiritual growth. that is a kind of growth that is actually has been shown to be more longitudinally effective in actually bringing people in. Is that when someone comes in, you do grow to meet the challenges that that person has, and individuals take it on themselves to grow in that way. And there's like 4 ways you can measure growth, and that's the one that's the hardest to quote measure because it doesn't have a metric. But most people writing about it who I like and who I think know what they're talking about will tell us that that is the kind of growth that has the kinds of dividends that create a place that people want to be. So thank you for saying that, Richard.
I think we could call that first, the other type of growth by cloning.
We call it borging, but yes. Nan and Pierre, you had your, no? Okay.
Oh, and then Karen.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'll line up too.
Okay,
After
so
Nan and
yes,
Pierre.
and I see that Nancy, then Kimberly, and Janice, I saw you kind of putting your hand up, but I wasn't sure if it was before them. So we'll go Nancy, Kimberly, Janice, Karen. Go ahead, Nancy.
Perfect.
Well, when you said we're not going to be having food or drink for a little while, I was thinking that maybe we should have a different kind of cookies, like cookies cut out of colored paper. And as people get up from seeing the service, maybe that we hand out, and then people of different colors can get together and maybe talk about something about the church each week, or maybe there'd be a topic each week for a little bit of conversation after church that's organized, because for some people it's hard to get into a new conversation. You know, like you know, have blue cookies and red cookies and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I actually kind of thought the same thing when we do get back together. We might need some kind of like, because guidance on what to talk about, or something like that, because we're so unaccustomed to talking in groups. So
yeah, that's right.
So thanks, Nancy. We'll go to Kimberly, Janice, then Karen. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Hey there. So for those who don't know my little history, I was involved with the church and the choir. I rented the room upstairs for like 20 or something years. And then I had a health problem and kind of everything blew up. I asked to become a member of the church because I needed something at the beginning of COVID to ground me. And I love the Tuesday night Pau Hanas and I love the Sunday services. But it wasn't until I put in a request directly to you, TJ, saying, hey, I could use a little help with this. And you said, oh, I know this wonderful couple in Buffalo. And Martina and her family came to my rescue. And from that grew other things. So I'm wondering if somewhere in here is a way for us to ask people when they come in, what can we help you with?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I say sometimes you should pretty much bet when someone comes to the door of a church for the first time, it's not because they're on a super winning streak with their life. I'm going to say it with all gentleness, but you just got to understand from where I sit in a place where I see people's faces when they come through the door or stand in a place, and most people are sitting in a place where they don't see them till they sit down, and maybe not till coffee hour. I see that look on their face. There are times where I'm in the middle of announcements and I'm going to be like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. I just want to tell them because I can see what's going on with them. So thank you for saying that, Kimberly. It's a really thoughtful and comes from a real experienced place of care and being met. So thank you. I think we said Janice and then Karen. Go ahead, Janice.
I'm thinking about the people that have been able to join us, the mysteries of Zoom, off island, from different states, from people who are more homebound, and a way to keep them connected. Even though many of us are on Zoom for our services and everything, we can still get together. If we live on island, call up a friend for a cup of coffee, go over to have a dinner with somebody else that you're comfortable with. People who are not physically connected on the island don't have that. So how do we become have a personal relationship or a social relationship with those kinds of people. They come on Zoom church, we say hi and whatever, and then unless they're part of a chalice group, they kind of disappear for another Sunday. Do we make a phone call? Just have a little chat saying we really enjoyed seeing you and stuff like that, and trying to get them to be more personally in contact with people other than just coming in and attending something on service. So I think we really need to maybe think of different creative ways to keep those people connected when many of us are able to go back to church or even have personal experiences now when they can't be joining in.
Thank you for that, Janice. And I do want to also bring back just what Kimberly just said about asking people what they'd like, or what we can help with, and just kind of seeing what the answer really is. I'm a champion of because I was this person for a long time who just wants to come 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes into service, leave 2 minutes after service, and be a happy pledger and not do anything else, just come to worship or, whatever that is. And all the way up to folks who want to go on retreats and want to be included and want to, understand what's going on and when, and asking, what people would like and how to be reached, I think is part of the work. So, so we're going to go to Karen. Hi, Karen.
Hey, no, this is, I like how this conversation has evolved from feeling uncomfortable talking to new people to we get a fresh start now. And I think there's been a lot of really creative ideas here. There's many ways to welcome, and opening that up, just piggybacking on what Eleanor had said. And I love what Kimberly said. And I was just thinking another welcome maybe are things that we're doing multi-generationally that we could invite friends to join us. For example, Coco on October 23rd. Movie. Anyway, I just think that I'm appreciating the ideas and the creativity. I love the idea of different colored cookies. If we can't have real cookies to eat, let's really, we're at a completely different place than we were, and we've got beautiful opportunity here to be creative, and I really appreciate some ideas that have come out. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Karen. I mean, on Sunday, just in case people, I know everyone waits and listens to every word I say every Sunday in the announcements and signs on early to listen to those announcements, and reviews the tape, backwards to make sure you got it. But Sunday, we're gonna do a half-hour story and song service from 10 to 10:30 on this, really the stories of Noah and animals, and also the story of praying Nu'u from the Hawaiian faith, and juxtaposing those and sing some songs together. And then from 11 to 1, I'll be blessing any animals of any stripe or lack of stripes, drive-through style at the church. Bring any masks you want, and if you want to hang around for a little bit, that's fine. But we'll practice social distancing within people's comfort zone and everything. So yeah, so that's going on in the church. We're going to have a photographer on site. We'll put together a nice little video of everything. And so it's going to be a fun Sunday. Yeah, just couldn't help it. It's announcement time. We'll go to Nancy, Catherine, and then David or Joan. Go ahead, Nancy.
I'm thinking about Kathy, you're in Hilo, aren't you?
She's on Big Island.
I'm in Kona.
Kona.
You're in Kona. What would you like to see from us?
Well, I'll tell you what, I got snatched up so fast because I don't remember who, I think it might have been Lee, asked me if I wanted to join a book club. And so that's the first thing. And then I got snatched up on a couple of committees. And I think asking people what they're interested in, if you somehow to do that, I can't remember. I think Lee is here. I can't remember how she did it, but that girl
Lee,
wasted no
yeah.
time whatsoever.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you so much for sharing that and for your question, Nancy. Catherine.
So one of the things that other congregations have mentioned doing in the coffee hour after Sunday is to break into smaller groups. And I think that would be really helpful. There are sometimes after church when there are, 30 of us on the call and nobody says anything. And it's a little awkward, but, and there are some new people on there. It'd be really nice to talk to them, but to talk to them with 30 other people there is kind of strange. So I think breaking into smaller groups on Sunday after church would be helpful.
Okay. Yeah. That we'll have to figure out. I mean, I'm game for that. I really would need someone with who'd want to, or we need to switch something up because we have to kind of like break down and go because we're trying to respect this time of the people who live in the church. Anyway, we can talk about that, but ideally it would be me transferring over to someone who would feel comfortable handling the breakout rooms. That's what I'd need to volunteer for ideally. So that's how, and who's comfortable. They're not that hard once you get used to them, but it'd be someone taking over the minister account for Zoom essentially and managing the breakout rooms on Sundays. Thank you, Catherine. David or Joan.
You're muted.
Memory lane here for me in a way because these conversations are bubbling up memories from a long time ago. We had, what are you doing? TJ?
I'm waving to Joe. She's waving to me. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, it's all right.
Yeah.
I had to ask.
She's spinning around in a chair.
I'm remembering a tradition that I think we outgrew, and I missed it when we transitioned. And I think there was a time, I don't remember the vocabulary now, but we went from a program church to pastoral or the other way around or whatever when we got bigger. But the idea of inviting people, newcomers at the beginning of a service to stand up and very briefly say their name and who they are, where they're from, and a sentence or two about who they are. And that's all. And to go around the room and anybody, it was strictly voluntary. It was not mandatory. But I found it to be, I experienced it in San Mateo, California, when I was a newcomer in a church. And I found it very, very congenial and enjoyable. And it was an icebreaker kind of a thing. And I think that as the congregation grew and there were more people and more visitors, it maybe just became untenable. It took up too much time. And some people tended to want, go on and on like I'm doing now. But anyway, I miss that. I miss that tradition, and it was very heartwarming and congenial when I recall experiencing that way of introducing myself to a new congregation and being welcomed.
Yeah, thanks, David. Well, friends, we're at dinner hour for some people, bedtime for others. Thank you for this time of being together. Welcome is the thing. I've said this a few times. It's really the one thing a church has got to get right, and I think we've done some good thinking about this, and we're in a time of change right now. And I'm going to be looking at whether there are things that we've even talked about that we can start doing while we're still on Zoom in the coming months, and then transitioning over into being back together. But it's important to get these things started and hearing these takes. And I hope that everyone got something out of hearing this. And if you have ideas that come up after this, something that strikes you or an idea, please just send an email to me. and let me know what is, what you're thinking. And I'd love to hear from you. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you.